Alrighty, we are live on Cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats. I'm here with Jim Mahfood, and I'm here with a super special guest for a moment, Chris Piers. What up, y'all?
What's up, guys? Happy Friday.
Yeah, dude. I am here in my super vintage Girl Scouts tee, and we're talking Girl Scouts Stone Ghost. What's up, Jim? How's Stone Ghost going? We are in the throes of the absolute marketing campaign that is getting this out to every single cartoon comic book loving eye. How's the challenge? How's the road going?
It's going great. We actually turned in all the print files today to Image. So nice. Issue 1 is good to go. Final order cutoff on issue 1 is November 1st. So I would encourage everyone to, let your comic shop know. And it feels good, man, to like make a project a big piece of work. And then the reality of, oh, now we're talking about, specs and printer stuff and logistics, and there's like charts and things are starting to happen. Pie graphs,
oh man,
I've got like a dry erase board on the wall in my studio of just like graphs and lists of notes for myself. And it makes it seem, that much more real, but it also makes me be like, okay, I really can't wait though to get back to the drawing table and actually just draw and make more stuff, because we were talking about before the show started, but it's like the business hustle of it is its own thing, its own part of the job. And I'm a creator that like I've always kind of just done everything myself. So like I don't hire an editor to work on my stuff, which maybe I should, but I just like having that control in my hands in every single part of the process.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah.
So, and my friend Carmen in LA, Carmen Acosta is my designer. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
She's actually doing the design on this book, but besides her, it's just her and I, and then dealing with Image Central with production, and my homegirl Trisha Ramos at Image, who is producing the book on Image's end. So it's basically like whatever hats you want to wear with being creative, making comics, you could choose to just be a team player and just be a penciler or an inker or a writer, or you could choose kind of the indie route that I chose, where it's like, I'm literally my own brand and company in a way, where it's like, I handle literally every part of what I'm doing. And after 25 years of doing it this way, you kind of just have to know what that entails. And everyone's different, man. And for me, I mean, this is the last thing I'll say about it. For me, a lot of the creators I meet now online and at conventions, I was just in New York a couple weeks ago. The direction seems to be with like social media and the world we live in now is like, just do all your own stuff, basically.
Absolutely.
Make a YouTube show, crowdfund your comics. And that's, I think, the advantage of being alive right now is you can sort of just make your own brand, craft your own identity, and literally put it out into the world and be self-sufficient that way if it's successful, if you build an audience.
Yeah, I mean, case in point right here in front of us, Chris Piers has done literally just that. And again, before we got on, he said he just went part-time at his day job. I mean, that's a huge thing to like be able to do that.
Chris, I've always been impressed, Jim. You've definitely, gone to the beat of your own drummer, which I don't know, like there was definitely like, a period of time in the mid 80s to early 90s where indie was like growing and popular. And then it sort of faded away, but you've always done your own thing. Although I do have a quick question, if I can interrupt one thing. Look at that.
Right?
I love that, Eli. you've primarily done your own stuff, but like one thing that I like that you did that wasn't yours, you did the and it's appropriate for the time. You did the Jennifer's Body horror comic. How did that ever come up? Like that's such a different project.
Yeah, that's interesting. My buddy Matt, his last name I believe is Gagon. If I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. Matt worked the register at Meltdown Comics in LA, and I would see him every Wednesday. We became buddies, and then he went on to become an editor at Boom, and he's the one who offered me the Jennifer's Bodies short story, with the caveat that he's like, listen, you can pencil, ink, and letter it. We'll leave you alone. You can choose the colorist. The page rate isn't great, but the advantages, the selling point here is I don't need to see layouts or anything. Just I'll send you the script and just do what you want to do. So I did the story.
That's so awesome.
What was that, Chris?
Oh, I just said so. So you were definitely still given a good range of creative freedom, basically, in exchange for like what you were doing. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it was just like I remember when you did that, and then like another one that you did that was like not necessarily your own thing, but I was a humongous fan of this show, Community. You did the Kick Puncher comic on that.
Yes, yeah,
extra
like just networking.
Yeah, I met Dan Harmon and Rob Schwab in the mid 90s when they were still doing Scud and Fireman Press.
Yep.
And we just became buddies. Basically pen pals. Like I was mailing them the original Girl Scouts self-published comics from 95, and there we go right there. And Rob was cool enough to like write me back and critique my work and give me pointers. And then I met those guys at a convention in 96, I think was the first year, and just stayed in touch with them. And then
that's so cool.
Harmon eventually becomes this super powerful person in Hollywood, which I'm an idiot, man, because I didn't even know. I don't watch a lot of like network TV or whatever. So I didn't know about Community. And Harmon emailed me out of the blue and was like, hey, I have this show at NBC. I was like, you do? And he's like, he said, I want to do something special for the first season DVD release. I want to do a comic. So why don't I send you all the episodes? You can see if you like the show. So he sends me the show. And I mean, I was just completely blown away by how good the show was, especially that first season. Yeah. It's really brilliant. It's amazing. So
yeah, they've been an interesting pair to follow, Schwab and Harmon. Like, cause I also like started reading Scud back like when it came out in the 90s, and following their career has definitely been interesting. Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool.
That leads us into every Sunday, Jim does the drink and draw on the Schwab Home Video website.
Yes.
That's sick, dude. That's been fun to watch, man.
Yeah. Thank you. SchwabHomeVideo.com. Yeah.
Every Sunday, 3
p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's just a block of programming that Rob basically produces. And he was like, why don't you come on and do your radio podcast, but live, and we can watch you draw. And I was like, sure, that works for me. So
I didn't even know Scud at all till I read your issue of Tales from the Punch Bowl. What is it called? Tales
the
from
vending machine.
Vending machine.
Yeah.
Punch Bowl's Primus album.
Yes. Yeah. Those guys let me do a one shot with that. And then I was actually showing the comic on last Sunday on the show, but they did a Halloween anthology back in like 97, man, called Big Crap Scare.
Yeah.
And Dan Harmon edited it, and I did a Zombie Kid short story for that.
Oh, sick.
So those guys, man, were like always cool to me, feeding me work. And then when we did the Community thing, Dan got me paid really well by Sony. And then when we were working on the story, the quote unquote story, I would go to the Paramount lot because I was still living in LA, and we would go to the most upscale restaurant on the lot. And Dan would be like, Community's paying for this lunch, order whatever you want. And so I'd be like, can I order steak and lobster? And he's like, yeah, fuck it, whatever you want to do.
And
So we would drink, we would get fucked up at lunch, and then eat an extravagant meal, and then stumble back to his office and like talk about story points, which
That's so cool.
I don't even know what that meant, but we got to do a comic and have NBC basically pay for all of it. So
it's insane. And it was like 10 pages or something. It was like
it was like a
short mini comic.
Yeah.
The box set back in the day.
It's only sick.
When people bought DVDs, but
I mean, that probably got it out to a lot of people, got straight comics out to a lot of people that might not have even got them in the first place.
Yeah, it was
and
cool.
That is, whenever you like try to get comics a little bit more into the mainstream, just like, hey, here's a free comic. People will take it and check it out.
Yes. It was also a way I was at a community after party at San Diego one year, like the year after the comic came out and the DVD came out. And my way of introducing myself to all the actors in the show, Allison Brie, Joel, like all those guys, is I went up to all of them and I could tell they were like, who's this fucking guy? But I could say immediately like, hey, I drew you in the community comic book that was in the first season. And their eyes would all light up right away and be like, oh, cool, dude, that was great. Okay. And so that was my in to like meet the cast, because I think all the cast of that show was, really brilliant, really good.
I'm biased. I actually was and still am good buddies with Ken Jeong from back in the 90s.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
You were in like improv or something with him, or a comedy class?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what we were doing when he was doing his residency as a doctor. And then he goes on to be a big actor.
That's wild.
Chris, was that in Seattle or were you in LA?
New Orleans.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I didn't grow up in Seattle. That's just where I live now. Like I've been out here like 7 years.
Okay.
Where are you now, Jim?
I'm in Portland and I've been here for about 3 years. So, I mean, we're kind of neighbors. So
we get the same weather.
Yeah. It's interesting.
What prompted the move for you, since we're talking about this stuff and it's about you?
I was in LA for 16 years and just kind of got burnt out on it and wanted to change. And a buddy of mine up here in Portland has a house, and he was like, hey, why don't you try something different and rent my house from me and see how you like it. So far so good. I mean, it's easy to live here. I don't know how long I'll be here, but I do miss like the LA art crew.
I went down like a month ago, and the cool thing about LA is it's one of the few cities in America that still has such a vibrant art scene. Like a lot of, as in, we all have like, comics and stuff like that, but there's not too many places that have active art galleries and stuff like that. There just aren't. Like,
right.
It's kind of sad, but like LA does have a vibrant scene for that.
Definitely. Yes.
It's beautiful for all these. We've been doing all these Halloween events, like honestly, out of this world, like old houses that are 150 years old that they turn into these like soirees, and you do like part costume, part concert, part like escape room, and they take you to the basement and it's all dark and there's naked people dance. It's like just the most insane things you could possibly think of for Halloween. Like we've been doing like every night. It's exhaustingly fun, but it's like
awesome.
It's like LA, it just has everything like that, including things like Girl Scouts release parties whenever Magic Socks came out last time. I'm good at segues, guys. I'm really working on them.
Thank you. You're good.
Hey, man.
Bringing it back to the focus.
I got to come hang for this one, and I got this signed by you and Jane Dope.
Hell yeah.
That was really fun at a shop called Quest.
Yes,
that you did that.
Shout out to those guys. That great comic shop.
I think that one shut down after COVID or during COVID, though.
Oh, did it?
I can't seem to get a clear answer on that, but
oh shit. Okay, those guys were always really good to me.
Very cool.
That was 2017. So, see, it takes me sometimes 3 to 4 years to produce a new series, just because it's
Yeah, but it takes
so much work, but
what you're putting into it is not like any small feat. I mean, I've been working on issue 3 of Monkey Lion, my book about an intergalactic Afro-funk band on tour through the galaxy for almost 5 years, if not more.
Wow.
And it's like, where is it? You know, it's, you just, like you said earlier, you get into the business side and you get doing the things, and then you're like, can't even find the time to draw.
Yeah. And I'm doing, additional freelance illustration work at all times, on top of comics to help bring in, the money. And so splitting my duties, it's been kind of a juggling act for the last 25 years of figuring out like what to say yes to, what to say no to, what connections to build, what things to pursue, but in the back of that, man, has always been like my undying love since I was a kid for comic books and the want and need to make my own comic books. And the landscape and the industry always seems to ebb and flow and go up and down and change. But what doesn't change is just my, passion for like making the stuff. So I think the key is like making the stuff, but then figuring out like where you fit in with the lexicon of it all. Like, where do you fit in with where the industry's at and what's going on and how to promote. And I don't know. I was talking to a retailer this week, actually, a really smart retailer who was like, dude, listen, comics are basically just like the Wild West at this point right now. So he's like, whatever path you can pursue that works for you, pursue that path. However you can hustle your books. Yes. If you crowdfund, if you get a publisher, it's like there's no really right or wrong answer. It's just what suits you and your work and your vibe and what will get your product out to people. Because it's kind of just like, everything goes.
It's wide open for everyone to put their hand in. This actually leads really good into our first audience question here from the Ringside Seats group. Tony McMillan, who is an amazing comic book artist in his own right. He did a book called Attaboy recently, which is like about this Mega Man-esque character. It's like a part Nintendo Power article, part like I'm stuck in my reality. It's so good, man. Jim, I'll send you one. You got to get it. Anyway,
okay. I feel like
we talked about it before.
I feel like I met Tony just recently in New York.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Tony, tell us if you're still watching.
I might be wrong, but
he's an amazing cartoonist. He asks, Girl Scouts is a project you keep coming back to and reinventing. Do you feel like the current version is the definitive version, or are you leaving the door open to future iterations which might vary wildly?
That's a very good question. It always changes with each series. This new one is the most different from anything I've done previously because I'm introducing a brand new Girl Scout character in a brand new setting. It takes place in outer space as opposed to Freak City on Earth with our 3 Girl Scouts that we normally spend time with, Gwen, Rita, and Daphne. This is a new character named Dio, and it's her adventure, and she's surrounded by all these a new cast of crazy characters. But with this new series, I'm starting to establish the mythology of where the Girl Scouts came from as this organization of badass female warriors. So that's going to lead into the next series after this, and we're going to return back to Freak City, but I'm basically establishing an official mythology now with where all this came from.
That is
it only took me like 20 years to figure all this shit out. But I wanted to establish, I mean, it's kind of what pop culture does now. It's like I wanted to establish my own universe,
right,
of where all this stuff comes from. And so that's kind of what I'm crafting right now.
Did you dig back into the old stuff and like pull out little things or something so that now we could, like, after we read this, we could look back and be like, oh man, here's like where, her dad was talking about this thing or something? Or
I did a little bit. There's a couple references to Magic Socks, the last series, but I kind of wanted to approach this series where you don't need to know anything about the Girl Scouts. And if you're a new reader, you can jump on fresh and start buying this with issue 1, and you don't have to know anything previous. I also had I've already talked about this a lot, so I won't talk about it that much, but I had a cartoon deal with Girl Scouts at Disney last year, and I developed a Bible for the show that explained the history, the backstory, and all this mythology. And when the show didn't get picked up, I figured, well, I have all this amazing backstory that I'm still happy with. I'm just going to start plugging that into the comics now. So,
had you not like come up with that before, Jim? Or was it like, like just sort of half there in the back of your head? Like, had you ever like really written down that mythology before this show?
Not really, no. And I mean, that was the good thing that came out of developing the Bible for the cartoon, was they wanted the complete backstory of all this stuff. And so I use this as an excuse to be like, what's the craziest shit that I can come up with and still get away with? Because if it's animated, you can animate anything basically. So no holds barred. That helped me establish the history and what I wanted to do with the backstory with all this stuff. And then now I have this Bible, this reference material for myself that can be a springboard into any new Girl Scouts comics I want to tell. So if it's like, if I want to tell a story that takes place in the 70s with a Girl Scout character that existed in the 70s, I can do that now based off of what I have established for myself. So I'm not sure why, like, it's kind of embarrassing that it took this long, but at least I have it now that, it's
be a consistency now to everything you create, like moving forward. They're grounded in something. That's interesting.
What almost seems like too, the older books didn't have like, I mean this in a good way, like they didn't have like the scope, the like worldwide intergalactic dimension hopping scope that like Magic Socks and the new one's going to have. So maybe it didn't even like occur to you to be like, oh man, I need this whole thing, or like it didn't present itself because the idea for you hadn't grown to this like bigger thing.
Yeah. No, you're totally right, man. And I, starting off as a young guy in my early 20s, writing and drawing my own stories, the scope was limited to, I've created these characters, their adventures basically just take place in their neighborhood. I mean, that was sort of the first 2 series, the first one, Girl Scouts, and then Girl Scouts Work Sucks. It's basically these 3 characters dealing weed and dealing with everyday kind of crazy stuff that comes their way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with Magic Socks, I had evolved so much as an artist since the last series. I really figured out a way of like, how can I make this completely me and just go kind of balls to the wall? Because for me, the comics medium, being a visual medium, why not take advantage and do the most incredible visual stuff you can throw out there,
Right. I mean, you say you don't like your old art, dude, but come on.
What was that, Chris?
I hate interrupting because I know it's like you guys show, but I'm curious, like, you definitely have your own art style. I was wondering if you could like sort of walk us through, like, say you're going to do like a page or 2 or something. It's a day for drawing. Like, what would be your typical day for like, when you start, like what materials do you lay out for yourself? Like, and how much of that is like stuff that you come back to and do like, more like, do you do all the artwork, for instance, on a page all at once? Or do you come back in and sort of like do some of the painterly effects or like stuff like that? And like, with Photoshop or with paint, or like, what would be your process, in other words? Because you've got like a very unique artwork style.
Yeah. It's interesting with Magic Socks 4 years ago, that series, I wrote all 6 issues and then I sat down and I would pencil an entire issue at a time. And then I would ink that entire issue and send the pages off to my colorist for coloring and lettering. That was a really effective way of working. With this new series, I write the whole series and then I sit down and do thumbnails, break it all down. But with this new series, I've been penciling and inking a page at a time. I'm also hand lettering it. So I kind of wanted to know right away, setting the tone with issue 1, what's this going to look like penciled, inked, lettered, and colored by me? Like, I'm doing everything this time around. I wanted to make sure I wasn't falling on my face with this new one because it was slightly different. So my approach was, let's get this first batch of pages out, penciled, inked, lettered, colored, and see what I'm working with here and make sure I'm on the right track. Once I figured I was on the right track and I finished the entire first issue doing it that way, that set the tone and the work pace for the remaining 5 issues after that. So, and it's also too, man, I don't know how you guys feel, but my reward for myself, almost like when I sit down to pencil a page, is the inking process.
Definitely.
And on
That's
a day
what turn your mind off. You've done the work, like the layout and stuff like that. Now you can focus on the texture and the details. And I don't know, that I sort of agree. Like that's the sort of fun part.
Yeah. And especially if you're on a day-to-day grind of making comics, for me, that reward part comes in. Okay, now I'm gonna like get into the inking and really turn up the music loud and vibe out. And this is where I get to shine. I'm confident. I know what I'm doing in this phase. Most of my drawing style comes in this phase. Like, this is just the icing now on top of the delicious buttery cake. That hopefully makes it that much more of an appealing
delicious comic for us to
deliciousness. Yeah.
This kind of stems off a question also asked by Joseph Patrick in the comments. He says, Food One, I've been a huge fan of yours since 2000, read the Clerks trades to absolute shreds. I just wanted to ask, your art has undergone some dramatic changes since the first Girl Scouts. I mean, even from this Girl Scouts and this Girl Scouts, the changes are a lot. How did you keep pushing your art past that like graffiti / animated style into the visual funk that it is now?
Constant curiosity and being fascinated with process, always wanting to progress and expand. And some of my personal favorite artists are artists that their work has evolved over time. Whether we're talking about like Jamie Hewlett or even like Mike Mignola. Like, if you look at Mignola's late 80s stuff when he was being inked by different people, and then the transition of him inking himself, developing Hellboy. And then when you get to like Hellboy in Hell, it's just this magical thing of seeing a guy so comfortable and so in control of his own aesthetic that, for me, I never wanted to get pigeonholed into, I think this happens with a lot of mainstream superhero artists. Like, your fans become obsessed with the way that you work, and they don't want to see anything differentiate from that. Right. So for me, an example is like, Jim Lee sort of always has to draw like Jim Lee. And that's not a bad thing. Like Jim Lee's great, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, if Jim Lee suddenly became this like psychedelic experimental artist, the hardcore superhero fanboys, I don't know how they would react to that. And I set myself up for, there's always going to be room for me to like ebb and flow and change, but I still want my people to come along with me on that journey.
Well, talking about your specific example there, we did get a little bit of an idea of that, because Jim Lee, like shortly after he helped start Image, he did Death Blow, where he was obviously very influenced by like, what Frank Miller was doing at the time as well, probably like, some other people too. But yeah, anything from Image was doing well that time, but obviously that did not engage readers the same way as what they wanted to see. And pretty soon he was doing stuff like, for DC again,
Right.
yeah, you're right. Like if you get super popular on something, that's where people know you from, and they don't necessarily always want to see you evolve.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a TikTok that I watched the other day. Yes, TikTok. It was this snowboard guy with the long red hair. I can't remember his name, but he said he saw you know who I'm talking about. But he said Sean.
Yeah.
But he said he saw Carrot Top one time in Vegas, and Carrot Top was like, he was like, I'm thinking of cutting my hair. He said that's what Sean said to Carrot Top. He's like, do it. I'm stuck. This is my image. I can't cut my hair even if I tried. Do it now. So that's what it's the same type of thing. It's like you gotta. You either shed and keep challenging your fans. That's how I felt, Jim, because I loved your early Girl Scout style. Like it influenced me so much. And then when it started growing, I was almost like, what the fuck? But then the more I read and the more I looked at it, I was like, okay, look at this. Look what he's doing here. He's challenging us as readers. And hey, the first reference that came to my head is like Miles Davis. Like you got your kind of blues and you can put that on and enjoy it. But then once you get into the Live Evil, Bitches Brew and all that stuff, it's challenging you to find out what you actually loved about this person and then moving forward to like.
You're so right, Eli. And it's like, it's like, what are the options there? Either you stay like doing the same thing all the time and your audience kind of shrinks, or you try to change it up every once in a while and hopefully enough people respect that they're willing to like go with you on that journey.
Exactly. And they trust you as the artist that they love, and they're like, okay,
actors, they all have to do this, but certainly comic book artists are not immune to it. They have to like try to keep pushing themselves forward in new ways.
Definitely. And I'm an artist that relies heavily on instinct with my work, and my instinct after so many years of doing this and always being a very I'm a huge, Eli, I'm sure you know this, I'm a huge like sketchbook worker proponent of always have a sketchbook, always doodle, always make marks, even if it's shit drawings. You're not going to show these to anybody. Just play, experiment, have fun, push styles, try different inking techniques, try different tools. For every terrible drawing you do in your sketchbook, if one magical technique comes out of 20 shitty drawings, then you take that magic technique and you put it in your arsenal of what you're going to bring to the table when you go full blown with your style. So being a sketchbook worker, straight working in pen most of the time, it does help you hone this instinct that after so many years of doing this, when I'm sitting down to work, there are times where like my instinct is just like, oh, do this now, like make this red, or just take a brush and fucking splatter ink on this entire side of the drawing, and it's very, so when that's the number one question I always get asked is like the style question, which is a fair question. But for me, it's always like this arty farty thing of like, I don't know, man, how in tune are each of you with your instinct and what your inner direction is kind of telling you to go in? And if you're a young amateur artist, you might not have developed any of that at all yet. And that's okay. You're just trying to like figure out the basics, the foundations, and that's what you should be doing. Like you do need to get your academics first. And that is one of the advantages of going to art school for me. I went to art school freshman year. We were all forced to do foundations, which is an introduction to all basics. And as far as drawing goes, it was, anatomy, light and shadow, composition, design, live figure drawing from nude models, traditional academic type stuff that when I first got into it, I was like, man, fuck, I just want to draw comics, man. And then 2, 3, 4 months into all this, I was like, oh shit, this is actually really dramatically affecting my drawing game here in a positive way. And so learning all that academic stuff then I could apply all my weirdo tricks to it afterwards, the ink splattering, the loose line work, the scratchiness, that's all that's all like set dressing to you want to make sure your foundation, your skeleton, your structure is strong, and then you build all the costuming crazy shit on top of that.
But before you can start breaking them, like if you're just breaking stuff, then you don't know if it's like making the anatomy look too weird and like not. You got to find ways to have like weight and gravity to your art, even if it's exaggerated. I totally agree.
Yeah,
and know how to play with. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was just gonna say know how to play with the figure. Oh, what'd you say?
I didn't mean to talk over you. I was asking if I could ask another question.
Of course. Definitely go for it, dude.
What do you find is the part of your process that you consider the most this is when I'm working, as I know it's all good work, we love comics, but what do you consider work? Like, is it like is it the thumbnail stage? Is it like, brainstorming? Like where do you consider like, I gotta focus, this is work for me, but this is the only way I'm gonna get through it? Like what's the work for you?
The writing and the breaking down and layouts and actual storytelling is still the most difficult and challenging for me. I'm sure like you guys, I've been reading comics my whole life, studying comics my whole life. The storytelling aspect and the decision-making that goes into all of that is still the most challenging for me, because there's so many options, there's so many directions you can go in. That's where it feels like literal like homework to me, where I'm like, fuck, okay, I have to figure this out. But I've gotten like especially with this new series, I've gotten like a pretty comfortable process with all of that as well, which is I just keep a notebook now for each issue, and I literally write down or record on my phone any idea I have, as terrible as it might be, as good as it might be, any bit of conversation I think can fit in that issue. I just put it down. And then when I'm ready to lay out that issue, I have an entire notebook of all these ideas, all these staggered bits of dialogue, all these strange thoughts. And then I sit with that in front of my computer and I just start typing it all out and constructing it and piecing it together into what becomes basically a working script for myself. So, and I'm not even scripting like what a comic book script looks like. I'm just typing out the dialogue and saying on top of it, these two characters are in a bar and this is the conversation. Because in my mind, I know what that scene looks like. Yeah. And then I start breaking that scene into actual thumbnails, the panel structure. But that part of it is always challenging. And at night, I give myself what I call homework, where I'm literally sitting down at night with these notes, going over it, and I'm actually looking at other comics. I'm reading comics, and I'm looking at comics, just flipping through and being like, okay, how does storytelling work? Like, how does we all know the basics. I know the answers to this, but I almost have to set it up for myself where I'm like, okay, what is the approach for all this stuff? Like, I know the inking phase. I've got that. Yeah. I know the actual penciling phase, but it's this building the foundation, laying the blueprint is basically
the work.
The work. Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. It's also when some of the most fun surprises happen, like figuring out a puzzle, like when I crack the code for an entire issue and I've laid it all out and I'm happy with it. It's kind of like, okay, well, this is what it's going to be. Now I'm committing to this. And now I'm sitting down to draw 24 pages of this. So this is it. But at the same time, if while I'm working on an individual page, if I need to add or subtract a panel or add some idea, since I'm the editor, writer, penciler, inker, I can do that. It's still my world.
Yeah.
And I always have that in the back of my mind, especially after going to Japan for the first time in 2019. I always have in the back of my mind, this is my thing, and I can make it as crazy and weird as and fucked up as I want to. So I always have that kind of like safety net of being like, no, this is my thing though. Like, I don't want to lose readers, but at the same time, like I don't want to restrict myself to a box of not being playful and experimental.
Definitely.
What did you do in Japan? Did you go to the comic convention or something that year?
Yeah, man. In 2019, I went to Tokyo Comic Con, and I set up.
I didn't go to the convention, but I was there in Tokyo at that time.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, I've gone to Japan several times. I was there in 2019. That's so fun.
Did you see Ed Piskor?
No, but we were in touch. Like we just didn't like end up meeting up there either. We've since talked, Ed Piskor and I, that like once Japan opens and we can go back, that like we actually have like, you know, maybe we want to go do something together for like our YouTube channels over there.
Yeah. Count me in for that if you guys don't
Oh,
know.
Nice. Yeah, like what, tell us about your experience there. Like, was that your first time going to a Japan convention?
Yeah, I did Tokyo Comic Con. I'm friends with Peach Momoko and her husband Yo, and they helped facilitate all this. And so I met up with them and my buddy Matteo Scalera, who's incredible artist, obviously. So we set up together at Tokyo Comic Con and then had a blast. And then I stayed for 3 weeks after that and got an Airbnb with Matteo in the city. And we just explored Tokyo. We went to, you know, Mandarake basically every day. And
such a place.
My mind was just completely blown by all of it, man. I was so inspired and overwhelmed by all of it.
Did you happen to go to the Mandarake stores, plural, at Nakano Broadway by any chance?
Yeah.
Isn't that one interesting? Like, I don't know if you're familiar with that, Eli, but it's like several Mandarake stores, and each of them specialize in different aspects of comic books. So it's a whole mall full of comic book stores.
What?
It's insane, dude. It's
oh my God,
amazing. And then what was cool is Ed connected me with some of his friends out there. So his buddy Aki wound up being like one of my basically like tour guides for a couple of the days I was out there. I also, you know, hooked up with Takashi. Fuck his last name. He's the guy who did Afro Samurai. Takashi starts with an S. Shit. I apologize, Takashi. But so I got to, you know, connect with all these fantastic people. And it was funny because with the convention,
Okazaki.
Yes, thank you. Mark Brooks was also out there, and oh shit, a couple other people. Chip Zdarsky was also out there. So you know, it was funny. I was going to Mandarake, the mall one you were talking about.
Yeah.
And on the street, I ran into Chip Zdarsky and Chris from TCAF in Canada. Chris Burns. I'm terrible with names today.
It's okay.
But it was just funny. We saw each other on the street and we're like, do you want to go to Mandarake together? We're all going there.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it was one of those things of great minds think alike. So
that sounds like such a good experience. Like I've gone to like Japan several times, but I've never gone with like anybody that could be a guide. I've discovered it all like by myself, but the idea of being there with a friend sounds amazing.
Yeah. And having obviously Japanese people that speak English as your guide. That's like the win-win situation right there.
That sounds very cool. Congrats on going there.
Thanks, man.
Let's hit up the comments here a little bit. Let's see. Joseph, again, who asked the question about your style, also said that Huddleston is another crazy evolution, and that is so true.
Yes.
Decorum was like a mind-blowing book.
Yeah. And I mean, I've mentioned it before, but Mike was my roommate in college at the Art Institute in Kansas City. So he was penciling, I was inking his work, and we tried to break in as a penciler inker team. Got a couple of gigs here and there, but eventually that didn't work. So I kind of went in my own direction of, I'm just going to write and draw and self-publish my own stuff. So
such a cool dude. I just have that story. I went to see one of those Blue Beetle live art gigs that you did after a Chicago Comic-Con in the mid 2000s or whatever. And I just sat down at a table because that's what you did. And I just started talking to the dude about music. And then he was like, oh, did I tell you that I went to college with Jim? And it was Mike, sure enough, like after a couple hours, a couple drinks. And it was just like mind blowing. And then I remember I left that day with like a note card with like all these like bands to check out, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings and Edan and all that stuff. And I was like, oh shit, this is great.
Yeah, Mike is one of those like annoyingly modest artists that I think he's like one of the best period out there. And I'm biased because he's one of my closest friends, but I'm like, why don't you get out there and just let everybody know that you're the shit?
Yeah, man. You know? I tried to get him on the Grendel cast because he did a sick story for the thing, and it was just like you said he's like he's super chill.
Yeah.
So all right, hey, let's hit up Kevin Polk, a good friend of mine too. He hosted the Mage a Hero Described podcast, I think was his title. Kind of spun off the Devil in Detail from that. But quick story about Kevin. He owns a piece by you, Jim. I believe we've talked about this before. It's of Mage smoking a huge joint, and he's like flying through the air and stuff. It's like the most amazing thing. I got it off your website when I was in high school and had it on my freaking math book printed out and taped. And like it said to Kevin. So I was like, oh, this must be Kevin Smith or something like that. Flash forward freaking 10 or 15 years later, and me and Kevin are chilling out. He comes here to be on our podcast, and something came up, and I was like, dude, what the fuck? And he's like, that's my piece. I own that now on my wall. And it's like this insane piece of like synchronicity that I love so much.
That's amazing.
I like keep slyly. I'm like, you want to sell that, right? Or something like that. But he's like, nah. But he asked, who would you love to collaborate with? Who's someone that we'd like to work with on a book these days, if you would? Oh. Much like Bad Ideas, that was such a cool project that you did with Dave Crossland and Wayne Shinsang.
Insane Wayne Shinsang. Yeah.
That was a sweet book that doesn't get enough love. Y'all check out that book, Bad Ideas.
Yeah, I think it's still in print, Image Comics.
Really?
Collaborations,
like on interiors, you got a ton of amazing variant covers for Girl Scouts coming up. By everyone, guys. But like, I mean, like on an interior, something like that, or telling a story together. Voodoo style even.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of Mike Huddleston, I mean, we do want to do a collaborative project together at some point, before we become total old men. So that's on the bucket list.
Revive the 40-ounce comics imprint.
Yes. Yeah. I could see myself collaborating with Trad Moore. I love his stuff.
Dude,
James Herron, Daniel Warren Johnson, that whole school of guys, I'm a huge fan of.
Definitely.
Peach, my homegirl, I would love to do something with her at some point.
Kind of like the One Dangerous Donut thing you guys did.
Yeah, that was so great. And
so you do a lot of collabs anyway, collabos.
Yeah, it's just getting that dynamic of literally working on the same page together. That can be a tricky thing. And Eli, I'm always down for experimental shit like that. Yeah. Some artists are not comfortable with being that playful I'm not saying any of the ones I mentioned, but I'm just saying in general, there's certain artists that are like, interesting, I just do my own thing, man. Or, it's requires some coordination, but even someone like Jonan Vasquez. I'm still buddies with him from way back in the day. Like, I would love to do something with him at some point.
Wow.
But I mean, when you start asking questions like that, it becomes like the sky's the limit of
right.
There's so many good people working right now. I really feel like we're in a new golden age of creativity right now. It's just the only downside is like there's just so much content in the world right now with everything, not just comics, but literally everything.
Nonstop content.
We're
making content right now.
Yes. But it's like the people that are good right now, like the artists I just mentioned, they're so good.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of overwhelming. It's amazing.
It's like when you think about bands. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, there's a lot of competition for the audience's eyeballs, and there's also a lot of competition for the actual creators for like projects and stuff like that. So yeah, two different sides coming at you like that.
Yep.
And as far as evolution goes, it's like bands that you love from like the 60s only had like the jazz and blues before them, but then the bands from like the 80s and 90s had all of that 60s, like you just keep building on this like pool of knowledge that you can dip into. So like as it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and easier to access, it's like, oh boy, then we're able to push everything further because we can drink from the sweet waters of inspiration that the pool is so deep now.
Definitely.
Troy Little pop in. He said Chris Butcher. Do you know him?
Chris Butcher. Yes, thank you. That's the gentleman.
Oh, the guy from TCAF.
TCAF. And thank you, Troy. Yeah.
Shout out Troy, man. He would be great to work with too.
Yeah.
You did the cover for one of those Fear and Loathing issues. That was bum ass.
Troy's awesome. We met years ago at maybe New York Comic-Con. My memory's not good today because I've been dealing with all the print file stuff with Image the last 2 days. I'm like
burnout.
.jpeg,
.png.
Yeah.
I was super lucky enough to score an original page of Troy's from my favorite scene, Fear and Loathing at the Taco Stand. From that's like one of my favorite scenes in the book.
Oh, nice. Awesome, man.
I'm a huge fan of Fear and Loathing,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go back to the well. Here's an easy one from Kevin Delgado, author of the amazing comic book Tough Stuff. Oh, Troy says he loves your cover. Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Kevin Delgado, also a hip hop artist himself. He says, "What's everyone's favorite hip hop artist/artists?" It's a hard one.
As in visual artists or
Oh, I guess hip hop, like MCs or groups or like musically.
MF Doom for me, for sure.
Good. He's very good.
MF Doom all day.
It's that easy for you to like lay it out.
Yeah. He kind of represents everything that I love with,
And I mean, he's got the comics in there too, hard.
Yeah. The visual of him, the voice, the reference points in the songs, the sampling old Marvel records from the 60s and shit. I mean, for me, he rest in peace. He passed a year ago on Halloween last year.
Oh yeah.
So
and I did myself too, because I'd still say the Beastie Boys are my favorite, and
they're very good.
The Beasties are great, and sometimes I'll listen to them, and it hurts to think I might not ever get to hear anything new unless they find an old track.
Can you believe that the Hot Sauce Committee Volume 1 is like stolen and just not unable to be found?
It doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Ugh.
Is that really what happened?
That's what they said in the book, that it was on like a zip drive or something, and that Mike D lost it or something like that.
Oh,
it was just gone.
Okay.
Son of a, I have a playlist on my Spotify that's just Beastie Boys and Gorillaz, and it fits so perfect. Just every album from both of those guys together on random. It's like they fit.
There's a guy that I don't see enough comics from, Jamie Hewlett.
Oh,
his Insta art is beautiful though. Those paintings he puts up on Instagram, absolutely mind-blowing.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right, well, let's get back into some Girl Scout stuff here. So Jim, it's coming out in November. You got to put your order in at the bookstore right now. Go ahead. Oh, you got a premier copy, promo copy there, huh?
This is just a printout on
Oh, the
cardboard
cover. I see
of the
that.
front cover.
I was like, is that the bleed area there going?
That's my cover. This is Peach's gorgeous cover. It was so crazy when her husband sent me this, I was just like, oh, fuck, her cover is so much better than mine, but that's okay. Like that's
Yeah,
okay.
Well, dude, you always got all these amazing pinups. I was flipping through this one I got, and I kind of forgot that you had this sick Mike Allred.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Madman with the Girl Scouts.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you were inspired, but Madman, even from the beginning, had these like insane pinups in it. Like he got everybody. Like,
yes. So good. He got like Frank Frazetta to do him.
yeah,
Madman.
Mobius, like every single. And
Also,
Han Allred in an interview told me that they just have all those in their house just hanging up. It's like,
oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's so cool.
there's that Jim Rugg heater.
Jim Rugg variant cover for issue 2.
Oh my God.
All drawn in ballpoint.
That's just so amazing.
Yeah, man. And then I mentioned Matteo Scalera. We have him on issue 3 variant cover. Tommy Lee Edwards on issue 4. And
Looks like there was a Scotty Young that I got an email about.
Scotty did
him,
a variant for issue 1 through his own store, The Stupid Fresh Mess.
Right.
So you order that exclusively through his
snap.
website. Dude, I love Scotty. We've been friends for a long time, and he's such a baller now that he's like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do my own variant through myself, through my own store. So he has an account with Diamond.
Damn.
And he just basically is doing his own covers for people. So I was super thrilled and honored to have everyone on board especially for issue 1 with the variants. And that's a whole other game now to navigate, by the way, in comics, is this variant cover craze. It's like,
it's a craze.
Changed so much in the last 4 years since I last did a book through Image that it's kind of overwhelming to navigate. I'm sure the 3 of us could have a whole other conversation just about variant covers, but
and anything that like helps the stores at this point, I'm for though. So if that's what people are going into the stores for these days and ordering multiple copies, awesome. That's exciting.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It's crazy, like especially with Ninja Turtles. I'm a pretty avid reader of Ninja Turtles. The amount of variant covers that they have for every issue of that it's like insane. It fills up like page spreads in the back. It's like,
yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, holy shit.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
That's what you just did.
I don't know how well it looks but I was just drawing like Donatello getting punched in the face by Shredder.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic. Holy shit.
Really great movement on that. Holy shit.
Good timing.
Hell yeah, dude. Okay, so it's coming out in the stores November
24th.
24th. Okay, November 24th. Put your orders in with your store right now. We got a shout out Craig CK. He says he only has 2 books on his pull list, and one's Red Room, and now he's adding Girl Scouts. So hell yeah.
Thank you, Craig. That's good company to be in.
And what about the variants? Are they like retailer exclusive incentive type stuff, or is it like they ship equal amounts, or how do they really do that?
So for the first 2 issues with Peach and Jim Rugg, we're doing retailer exclusives, 1 in 25.
Okay.
With issue 1, we also have 3 different stores. It's written on my board over here, so I'm going to look over here. Nice. We have the Comic Corner, Comic Grail, and Rabbit Comics all ordered their own variant covers for issue 1.
Store
very cool.
Store exclusives. And then Scotty did his own version of the cover. So yeah, we have like 7 or 8 different variants for issue 1. So I hope that's not too greedy, too much, but I'm basically kind of going for it. And I just said yes to everything. And hopefully that doesn't bite me in the ass in the long run. But for me, it's kind of like, the book is available to anyone who wants to buy it on November 24th, right? The standard comic. You go into your shop, you can get it. These variant covers, to me, it's basically like you're creating collector's items. You're knowingly creating a collector's thing.
Yeah.
But to me, as long as that doesn't interrupt the average kid being able to go into the comic shop and buy the book for $4,
Right.
to me, it's all good. I mean, that's just my approach to it. And I consulted, man, with like Ed Piskor and Eric Stevenson from Image about all this stuff because it's new to me. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't like, you know, fucking all this up or whatever. So, and it's kind of like what Chris said, it generating excitement to get into a comic shop or generating any kind of buzz you can over a new independent publication. Even though Image is my label, I still consider what I'm doing to be making independent creator-owned comics.
Yeah. Definitely.
So my approach to it, man, is still like, I'm the one who's basically still hustling this stuff. You know, I mean, Image has their marketing they do, but it really is on each individual creator under Image's banner to do their own legwork and have their own established fan base that's going to go out and buy this stuff.
Yeah. Is that why you keep going back to Image too, instead of like, say, just doing the self-publishing, is because they provide you equally like the freedom to incorporate your fan base and do all this stuff yourself, but then also the help to like get it out to the major stores and ship it and do all that stuff. Like it's.
Yeah, for me, man, it matters being in their section of the previews catalog, and
Right.
they've always treated me really well, and they've always completely left me alone as far as content goes. So when I pitch Eric a new series, it's like I will send him 2 sentences of what it's about, and he says, great, just make your book and turn it into us finished. So I'm the kind of creator that like I don't really want editorial interference. I work on something and I send it to like my best friends, the people whose opinions matter to me the most, so they can read it and see it and make sure that I'm not crazy or doing something completely fucked up or whatever. And as soon as I get them kind of signing off on it, I know what direction I want to go in, and I'm just off to finishing the product and making it happen, you know. But I've never had great luck with really heavy-handed editors or art directors. It starts to make me feel like I'm being put into a corner,
for sure,
and then that prevents me from having a lot of fun. And I produce my best work when I'm having fun and just on my own.
Hell yeah. And that comes through like heavy on the paper. It comes through in the book, man, for sure.
Good. Okay, cool. Yeah. And you know, man, everyone's different. So if you're a young artist out there watching this, sometimes having a heavy-handed editor, or art director, someone that knows their shit, that can guide you and make suggestions, that's a huge advantage for you. Like that might be something that gives you security and knowledge, which is great to help you grow as a professional. I'm just speaking as a weirdo, like 25-year veteran with his own style. That's kind of at the point where I'm like, kind of just want to be left alone to do my thing. And I think I'm pretty sure like what I want to do and what I want the end product to be. Exactly. So, and that being said, this Girl Scout Stone Ghost series is like the most me thing I think I've ever done. So it really,
what makes it so personal?
Well, I mean, I just think actually handling every aspect of it creatively, from the writing, drawing, lettering, coloring. I don't want to give too much of the story away, but this new Girl Scout character is a different character than I've ever written. She's kind of a heartbroken character. And I don't mean that I don't mean that the series is sad, but I just mean she's a character who's lost someone, and I lost one of my best friends in 2017, and some of that is in this new book. But I cleverly put it in so it isn't autobio and it isn't a bummer. But I'm dealing with some new characterization in this new series that I haven't really done before. And that being said, all the stuff going on around this new character is the crazy, psychedelic, violent, funny stuff that people have known my work to have. But I'm adding in I think I'm adding in like a new twist with this new series that the friends I've sent it to that have read it are like, oh, okay, you've stepped up. You're on like another thing now. That's good. That's,
oh yeah.
So I'm trying, man. I'm always trying new things and trying to challenge myself. I think that's the whole point of being creative at the end of the day is it's like we were talking about with style. Why stay static? Why stay stuck in one thing, kind of leave that room to expand and make things grow a bit.
Yeah, you got to grow. And we see it in each new episode, dude. I'm super excited, super psyched to talk with you. I pulled them out. I flipped through them before the interview. I hadn't done so in quite some time. I think they still hold up. I know you don't dig on the old stuff, but
no, man, I've come to terms with it. Like I've looked through them recently and like, it's okay. Like I don't, when I see my old work, I mean, I just remember it. It's like, I was a young man. I was a young guy in my early 20s and the work really reflects that. And it's like a time capsule. And years ago, I was always like, I don't even want to see the old stuff. Like, I don't even, and now like I've come to terms with, no, man, that's a piece of my progression. That's like, I'm not ashamed. Like that's a piece of my evolution. And absolutely, I'm proud I did that shit when I was younger. And when we started the Zoom and I saw that you were wearing the Girl Scouts Graffiti Designs t-shirt from 1998, I was like, that shirt, I love seeing it now because to me, it is almost like retro at this point. It's over 23 years old or something. So it is like, it's like a weird piece of my history or something at this point. So
like, you feel like it's crazy that you could have like a vintage t-shirt that's of your art, but it's like, it says 98 on the licensing down here. So that's like, that's a while ago.
Yeah, it's insane. And also, man, on that shirt, the lettering, that was hand cut and put on the actual art by me. That is of Letraset lettering.
Damn.
That I ruled out with a pencil and like cut and pasted down on the original art. So that's, and I mean, you know me, I still use the hand cut, the hand done Letraset, the Zipatone from the old school.
Definitely.
But hand cutting that and getting it exactly right. It was just, I do remember, I do have specific memories of working on old stuff where I was like, oh, I was listening to this record at the time.
Yes.
And
I mean, it's very clear what you were listening to. Like, obviously, that's something I've always loved is the unofficial sounds.
Yes. Yeah.
And also all the t-shirts like that. I totally stole that. That's another cool piece of trivia that I got from Mike Huddleston when I was chilling with him. I was like, oh man, I totally stole it for like changing the t-shirts in every frame of the bands I love. And Huddleston was like, he just stole that from Jamie Hewlett. And I was like, yes, hey, this is what people do. This is what you do. You find the shit you love and you adapt it into your own thing. And that's what I was going to say a little bit earlier too about growing as an art style too, is like you find all those elements of the people you love. And as you grow, you find these new artists that you love. And then it all becomes like your style. It all becomes the delicious melting pot gumbo of the style that you put out, you know?
Exactly. And yeah, man, on that point, I'll say everyone does steal and borrow, but the key is you add your own twist to it at the end. Like that's the most important part of that process is you don't want to be just a hack and a biter. You want to borrow, steal, put it through your own filter and add your own twist on it. And that's how a new style comes out. That's how you progress things, you know? So
that was okay.
And I was just going to say, it's up to each artist to kind of figure out their own path with doing that. Like you can't really teach that. You can suggest things and give advice, but it's up to each artist out there doing their thing to figure out what does that mean for them, you know?
Exactly. Something new I've been doing, I finally got an iPad that I've been messing with on Procreate and stuff. And some things that I've been practicing with is just pulling up some of my favorite art. And recently I did like the Star Watcher by Mobius, where the one she's sitting there, I think like this or something, and just traced every single line. Just traced every single line to like figure out the thought process that went through all that. Like, and I had read that like when Hunter Thompson was young, he typed out the entire book Heart of Darkness on his typewriter to get the feel for putting out something that amazing, or the feel for the, you know, the typewriter and everything. So, you know, you do those things to understand like why maybe you love this thing, and then you can spin out your you know, everything you've learned from these lines. And even if it's just one line or one thing or a little nose or something, and then you just continue it along, you know?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, going to take off, guys. I'm sorry that like I thought that, by the way, when I got into this, it was going to be the whole cartoonist group.
Yeah.
But I really sincerely appreciate you giving me some time to ask some questions and listen in. It means a lot to me. I really respect your work, Jim. I really respect what you're putting together, Eli.
Thanks, man. It was a great surprise. Honestly, I you know, it was great.
Yeah, Chris,
thank you so much.
Chris, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for your kind words.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Later,
take care, man.
With that, I guess we should probably end as well, Jim. I know probably everyone's watching this does know how to get in touch with you and get to see all your stuff. But if you want to just lay it out there, what's all your socials and how can everyone see more?
Sure. At Jim Mahfood on Instagram and Twitter. That's my everyday updates. I also have a Facebook page, Food One Art on Facebook. I have a podcast that's a music mixtape podcast, Skull Funk Radio on Spotify, 60 volumes for free.
Hell yeah.
And then on Sundays, we already mentioned, but most every Sunday, SchwabHomeVideo.com, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's an hour-long live stream drawing session with me with music playing. And I have one going up on Sunday for Halloween, special Halloween edition. And I'm trying to think what else. And then just, you know, I mean, we've plugged it so many damn times, but brand new comic book series, Girl Scout Stone Ghosts. November 1st is the cutoff date, final order cutoff. November 24th, the book is in stores. So I appreciate everyone's love and support, and the feedback I'm getting online for it, and the DMs and everything have been fantastic. So anyone who's hitting me up telling me it's on their pull list, I just greatly appreciate it. And I think you guys are gonna dig the series. It's something different. It's bugged out, independent, psychedelic comics at its finest.
Hell yeah. And hopefully if you're new to the Girl Scouts too, you'll find it and it will spark a little something inside of you, like it did me when I first read the book 20 years ago or whatever, that gets you to spur off from that Marvel and DC or those big two, investigate more indie stuff, and then start creating it yourself.
Definitely.
That's like the best. All right, man. Jim, thank you so much again. And to all you in Cartoonist Kayfabe ringside seats, don't just read more comics, be more comics. All right.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Eli.
Yo. Feel me now, forced to fight in a light where I might win despite my unwhite skin, and I just might blend. If I fade a certain shade like a trade toward my white kin, Allegheny left me stranded. They thought I couldn't stand it, stood stunned when I ran it, because that's just how they plan it. A little half nigga halfway across the planet, but when I get back, they step back. A set up